Chef Gilmore, you spoke of too as a grower, how you've become aware of different stages of growth and opportunities. Could you just continue on that thought about the shoots and the blooms and how that feeds your creativity?
Absolutely. You know, through growing vegetables myself, I also realised the life cycle of plants is really, really interesting. And you know, and sometimes I might be like, you know, I might be growing a red meat radish, for example, which are just beautiful radishes, and they have all that beautiful red colour, and the flavour's fantastic. But when, you know, I grew them, I realised that the flowers are really gorgeous too, and they're edible. And then if you let that go beyond the flowering stage, you know, you get these incredible seed pods, and when they're really young, those seed pods are delicious. So, you know, you're not just getting the radishes, you're actually getting all of these other things, you know, and different plants might be the leaves, or it might be, you know, when you're first growing them, that when they're in their really immature stage, the shoots are gorgeous. You know, or let them go to seed and see what happens at the other end. You know, I mean, with lettuce, there's a lot of lettuces, you let them go to seed, and the stems, the celtus, are delicious. So, you know, it's not true with all varieties, but some lettuces, when that seed shaft comes up, you peel that down and it's like asparagus. It's fantastic. So it's only through growing that you actually make some of these discoveries. And that's what's really, it gets the juices going for me. It's like you never know what's going to happen when you plant something, you know. And, one of the varieties of squash I grew last year was a attained squash, which is a Mexican squash, and it's a really popular squash in Mexico, but not very well known in the West, and certainly not very known in Australia. No one had ever seen it before. But when that's picked quite young, it's actually even more delicious than the best zucchini I've ever tasted. And also I discovered that the seeds, again, when they're young, are beautiful, delicious to eat raw. You just can maybe heat them up with just a little bit of butter, give them like 10 seconds in boiling water, a little bit of butter, a little bit of salt, and the seeds are absolutely a delicacy, you know. But if you let them grow all the way out, the seeds are too hard, and you know, they're not worth eating. But it's only by growing that squash I knew those seeds were beautiful, because I tested it. I cut one open, fried the flesh, happened to eat a few seeds, and went, wow, the seeds are great. You know, so that's the sort of discoveries you can make.
Along the lines of the highly perishable, when you are in your garden, you can quickly go into your kitchen. Have you had any challenges with working with these growers and getting that volume to you of a highly perishable item?
Yeah.
Do you get involved in that as well?
Yeah, well, look, you know, part of the commitment with our growers is to supply our restaurant, and I look after 2 restaurants. So part of it is to do with being able to guarantee volume as well. You know, Quay actually seats about 100 people, and we open for 3 lunches and 7 dinners. So we do 1,000 people a week. And Bennelong, our second restaurant, is in the Opera House, and that's twice as big. So I have the volume. I have, you know, sort of maybe 3,000 people eating at a very high-end fine dining food, which allows me a pretty decent budget to work with and to incentivise my farmers to grow for me. So I'm not just saying, oh, look, could you grow these, and I might take a few of them, and maybe you'll have to ship them around a few other chefs. I mean, and that can work. That can work for a market gardener, a farmer too, to have lots of smaller customers. And you know, and one of my suppliers supplies the market garden, but he also supplies me, and it actually works really well, because the stuff that, you know, I want at a certain size, if that gets grown, as you know, with things like radishes, like Hatsuka radish, for example, you leave it in the ground for an extra 7 days and it's double the size. So he can then sell those at the market stalls. So, you know, so it works that way. But with my suppliers there, I'm working with 3 farmers closely now, all within a 2-hour drive of the restaurant. So they all deliver twice a week to me. And they'll come with their van, and we'll pack everything away, and my chefs will take it into the core room. And so I find bi-weekly is enough if you look after the produce.
This is a 2-part question. Where do you see the future of restaurants and their relationship to organic and heirloom producers?
Yeah, well, look, I think not even high-end restaurants, even more casual cafes, I think can have incredible relationships and do have incredible relationships with growers. And I know that that's really big here in California, that the whole farm to plate sort of movement across all areas of the restaurant business. But I think in a lot of countries, it's probably not as strong as it is here in California. And I think it needs to grow. And I think that, you know, it's really interesting, isn't it, that we live in this sort of big society with these great big producers and big farmers that are broadacre, you know, monoculture crops, and they just, you know, they'll do a whole field of potatoes, and that's all they grow, and it goes off to the market, and they get their basic bottom line price that the supermarket's prepared to give them for their crop. And that system is pretty entrenched, and you know, with the supermarkets and the bigger farmers. And I think that when you're looking to break out of that environment, it's like every revolution has a counter-revolution, and there's plenty of evidence of that here in the festival. And smaller growers, I think the opportunities are that direct supply chain, direct to restaurants and cafes, direct to people that are prepared to pay for their produce, for the effort that goes into growing something organically, to grow something that's unusual, that may not have broad market appeal because people don't know about it. You know, and it, you know, maybe the purple asparagus might sit on the shelf in the supermarket next to the green because people don't know that purple asparagus is delicious, but they're a bit worried about it, so it doesn't sell. But restaurants, cafes, they want something different to show their customers. So, you know, I think you can have those direct relationships and actually get a higher price for the effort of work that you do as farmers and gardeners. And that's a way of almost breaking down those structured, big sort of, you know, system-orientated agriculture. You know, it's really nice to have those grassroots level, but it can be more than just grassroots. It actually can be a really healthy business.